Welcome to MKT Stories, a place to share stories full of emotions and surprises. Now let's dive into this special story. I'm Lilia's stepmother approaching her 40th birthday today. I want to tell you my own story, a story that even now, when I tell it, my heart still feels heavy. Everything happened day by day, persistently like a never-ending nightmare. I didn't know when it would stop, and that made me even more confused and desperate. The story begins one afternoon when my husband Matthew was away on a business trip. At home it was just me and his two sons, John 20 and Max 18. Both of them are adults, but because I am the son of Matthew's ex-wife, I always keep a certain distance, trying to keep my role as a stepmother from affecting our already sensitive relationship. That afternoon I was standing in the kitchen preparing dinner. It was so quiet that all I could hear was the clanking of knives and the smell of food coming from the stew pot on the stove. Suddenly from the hallway upstairs, I heard hurried footsteps. Before I could turn around, John appeared with a panicked look on his face. "Mom, come up here right now. Max is about to die." His voice was urgent and full of worry. Hearing that I dropped everything I was doing, not having time to think, just running after John. My heart was pounding with fear. What did "he's about to die" mean? Did Max have an accident, or is he sick? The questions kept popping up in my head, urging me to hurry up when I reached Max's door. I had no time to prepare myself mentally, when the scene before my eyes made me freeze. Max, with his thin, slender body, was standing there completely naked. The light from the window shone in, revealing every line on his body. Max smiled a smile I couldn't quite place. It wasn't a happy smile, nor was it one of pain or help. There was something strange about it, something that made me shiver. "Max, what are you doing?" I stuttered, my voice trembling with shock and confusion. I tried to look away, but the image was so deeply engraved in my mind that I could never forget it. Before I could react, Max quickly walked over, grabbed my hand and pulled me into the room. His gesture was both decisive and unexpectedly forceful. I panicked, trying to struggle. But before I could do anything, the door behind me closed with a click. John, who had just LED'd me here, stood blocking the door, his eyes looking at me with confusion. It seemed to imply both complicity and hesitation. John opened the door. "What are you doing?" I turned around and shouted, trying to stay calm, but my voice was lost in panic. While I was trying to calm down and escape the tense situation, suddenly I felt a weight from behind. John was close to me, his two hands gently holding my shoulders, his breath blowing close to my ear, making me shiver. "Stepmother, we can't stand it when we see you with father." His voice was low and hoarse, like a bold and calculating confession. I was stunned, unable to believe what I had just heard. "John, what are you talking about? I don't understand." I stammered, trying to turn around to face him. But John didn't move, his eyes were glued to me, not leaving at this moment. Max approached step by step, as if he was intentionally prolonging the suffocation in the air. He bent down so low that our faces were only a few centimeters apart. Max's eyes looked at me deeply and strangely, as if he was reading every thought in my head. "Mom," Max whispered, his voice flat and cold. "Please indulge us." The words hit me like a blow. I felt my throat tighten, my body frozen in terror. It can't be. I screamed in my heart, but my legs were frozen, unable to move. The children I had always tried to protect, the children I thought I could give my love to, were now doing this to me. I tried to struggle to escape the pressure that was holding me, but in front of me was Max. Behind me was John, both of them like a wall, blocking all escape routes. "Let me go," I tried, to scream, but my voice was so shaky, so weak that even I didn't recognize it. Max smiled a small but sly smile. "Mom, don't try to resist. We don't want to hurt you," he said, his eyes challenging any plea. "We just want you to know how important you are to us." Max's tone was even, but every word he spoke was like a knife cutting into my sanity. "Max!" "John." "What are you guys doing?" "Stop it right now," I shouted, trying to control the fear in my voice. But that only made us both more daring. John, from behind, tightened his grip on my shoulders, leaned down close to my ear and said, "Stepmom, you don't understand. Every time we see you, we can't control ourselves." Hearing that, I tried to push John away but couldn't. I was about to say something. A word stopped, but before the sound could escape from somewhere, an arm gently slipped under my thin shirt. The fingertips touched my secrets, carrying it captivating warmth, causing my whole body to freeze. A strange electric current ran down my spine, causing all my senses to fall into a state of paralysis. I wanted to speak. I really wanted to say stop, but my lips were pressed together, the words unable to escape. As if the weight of the struggle inside me had locked my will. In that moment, I could only stand still, my heart pounding wildly amid internal conflicts. I tried to control my body, wanting to step back, wanting to escape this seductive touch. But it was terrifying. My body no longer listened to my mind. Like a natural reflex, each intimate gesture was gradually responded to, weakly then more intensely. I clearly felt myself drifting away from the principles that had once held me. They took turns touching me. The gesture seemed endless, their eyes shining with triumph and boldness, without a trace of hesitation or reserve. Each movement seemed to draw me into a dead-end vortex, where all my will to control was gradually eroded. I tried to hold on to some sanity, tried to find myself in the midst of this chaos, but all my efforts were in vain. What was happening around me was like a nightmare that I couldn't escape from. My body reacted against my will, in direct opposition to the screaming mind. It was an uncomfortable mix of deep humiliation, loss, and an emotion I couldn't name, almost foreign and full of guilt. I knew it was wrong, that I was crossing a line of no return, but it was terrifying to realize that I couldn't stop myself from embracing a small part of this unfamiliar excitement. It was like a whirlwind that swept away every rational barrier I built up throughout my life. With each passing moment, I felt myself losing more and more. What I had believed in, what I had held on to, was now just fragments. I was no longer myself. I had become an undefined being, used and manipulated by strong hands, unbridled eyes. I was a toy for their selfish satisfaction. And the reality before my eyes became distorted, blurred like a painting torn by chaotic colors. I don't remember how I endured what happened. Every moment was a struggle between consciousness and instinct, between a desperate attempt to escape and a growing sense of submission. My last limits had been broken, both physical and mental. They had crossed every boundary, and so had I that afternoon. When it was all over, I stood still, paralyzed. The clock was now ticking in the room, and I tried to breathe, but my chest felt tight. I had crossed the line from which there was no return. Every step I took out of the room felt heavy, as if the weight of my wrongdoing had been fixed to my shoulders. My mind was filled with chaotic thoughts. What had I done? How did it come to this? Images of Max and John, my husband's 2 children from a previous relationship, flashed through my mind, evoking feelings of guilt and utter confusion. We had strayed in a moment of weakness, and it crossed moral boundaries that should never have been crossed. I stepped into the bathroom and let the cold water wash over me, hoping it would wash away the filth that surrounded me. But no, the cold water could not soothe the turmoil in my mind. I looked in the mirror, saw a strange face, eyes empty and deep. I wondered how long I could hide this, if I had the strength to go on as if nothing had happened. Part of me wanted to tell my husband everything, admit everything and take responsibility. But immediately that thought was rejected. If I told him this family would be torn apart, the broken pieces of trust would never be put back together again. I could not do that to my husband, who had always loved and trusted me absolutely. So I chose to remain silent. I told myself that time would heal all wounds, that if I did not speak out, no one would know, but Max and John did not think so. I felt their eyes that seemed to confirm that now between us, there was more than just this one time. They began to approach me more with ambiguous gestures and words, making it impossible for me to find peace. Their actions were no longer just daring experiments, but now a continuous possession without hesitation or reserve. Every time Matthew left the house, both Max and John seemed to become different people, bolder, stronger, and completely leaving no room for me to resist. At first, I still tried to resist. I screamed, pushed them away, struggled in vain, but those efforts were like small echoes in the empty room, unable to shake their determination. My resistance only made them more excited, as if they saw it a game, a challenge that made them want to take more each time. Like that, I felt small and powerless before their strength and determination. But then the scariest thing was that gradually, my resistance became weaker and weaker. I no longer had enough strength to push them away. No more screaming or struggling. Instead, my body began to react in a different way, a way that I didn't want and couldn't control. I felt myself slowly becoming resigned, as if all the doors in my mind had been locked, and I could only accept it. At first, I still felt a little embarrassed, a little bit of resistance in my eyes or gestures. But as time went on, that feeling gradually disappeared. Giving way to emptiness, I no longer had the strength to think much. I began to accept their actions without any reaction. Every gesture, every look of theirs seemed to remind me that I now belonged to them, both physically and mentally. Max and John seemed to notice the change. Their boldness became more and more obvious. No longer hesitant, they no longer had to probe nor wait. Instead, they took me whenever they had the chance. They turned these moments into a habit, and I, from a fierce resistance, now became a passive person, accepting everything they imposed. I knew clearly that this was wrong, that it crossed all the boundaries that a woman could endure. But it was terrifying to realize that I no longer had the strength to refuse, no longer had the will to fight. My mind had been worn down, and my body had learned to accept it as inevitable. I felt like I no longer belonged to myself. I was just part of a never-ending cycle, a game I could never control. Gradually, I lost all feeling. All that remained was emptiness, a dull ache that I couldn't name. I didn't know how long I could continue living like this, and if I would have the strength to get out of the hole. I had fallen into those days became an endless loop, where each day that passed only brought more darkness to my life. I didn't know what to do anymore. Every night, lying next to Matthew, I watched him sleep soundly, his face so peaceful that it made my heart ache. He had no idea what was going on behind his back. No idea that the wife he loved and trusted was carrying such a dark secret. I wondered if I should tell everything to end it all, to free myself, but if I did, what would happen to this family? Would Matthew ever forgive me, or would he leave forever? Part of me wanted to confess everything, to kneel before him to tell him that I was wrong, that I wasn't strong enough to stop it from happening in the first place. But the other part, the scared and weak part, prevented me from doing so. I was afraid of losing him, of losing the family we had built together. I was afraid of his disappointed eyes, afraid of his reproaches, afraid of an irreparable breakup. But if I continue to keep quiet, how long will this last? How many more days can I endure like this? Max and John show no signs of stopping. And I, myself, am sinking deeper and deeper into the quagmire of resignation. I'm losing control of myself. And that scares me more than ever. I need a way out, a way to save myself in this family. But I don't know how I want to ask you. Should I tell everything, or should I keep quiet and try to live with this burden? Please give me some advice. I can't go through it alone anymore. From my own story, I realized that silence is never the right way to solve any problem. Small mistakes, if not faced and handled promptly, will become big cracks, threatening to destroy the most precious things in your life. When you choose to hide, not only do you live in torment, but you also create opportunities for others to continue to hurt you. I want to give everyone a sincere advice. Always be brave to face the truth, no matter how difficult it is. None of us are perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. But what is important is how we choose to fix it. Silence only makes you lose yourself and those around you. Seek support from people you trust, from family or experts. Sometimes just one person, listening and understanding, will help you find a way out of seemingly endless deadlocks. Likewise, never let fear make you a hostage in your own life. Strength does not come from hiding mistakes, but from admitting and finding ways to fix them, no matter what the outcome. At least you have tried to keep the true values in your heart and protect the most precious things, self-respect and dignity. My story ends here. I am at the crossroads of silence. Confession or escape, but I cannot go any further. I don't know what to do nor how I will end it all. Perhaps this story will forever be a loop in my mind with no end. No way out. Please, everyone, if you read it, don't criticize or scold me. I just want to find a little relief in my heart when I say it all. The story of MKT Stories ends here. If you find this story interesting and worth pondering, please support us by clicking like, subscribing to the channel, and sharing the story with people you think they need to hear. Don't forget to leave your opinion in the comment section, because we always appreciate all your feelings and thoughts. Your sharing is the motivation for us to continue bringing more interesting stories. Goodbye and see you in the next videos.